Hey guys, so today I'm going to walk you through how I winterize my mercruiser 3.0. I got a 92 cobia ski boat here. We're down in Tennessee, so I'll show you some of the things I do down here. We don't get too cold of winters, so I don't shrink wrap it or anything, but I'll walk you through how I winterize the motor, and then I'll show you if you don't have an actual snap-on boat cover like this boat didn't come with and I don't feel like paying for a new one, I'll show you a hack I use to keep water from getting in the boat and sitting all winter, with some tarps and a regular Walmart or Amazon boat cover that you can buy that are custom, or sorry, not custom, that kind of one size fits all boat covers. All right, so let's get started. So first thing you're going to want to do, obviously, anytime you start up your boat beforehand, is you're going to want to hook up your water ears to your outdrive. Make sure everything is out of the way of the prop. Sometimes I tie my extra line to this, and if you do something like that, make sure it's out of the way, because if you get a prop going and it tangles up, you could mess up something inside that outdrive. So we'll undo that. We'll get our water running. And then another thing that you're going to want to do is add into your gas tank. You're going to want to add some stable to keep the gas over the winter, since it'll be sitting there for a while. You don't want any of that gas without that stable sitting inside your carburetor or in the motor. So make sure you add that first, because when you get the motor running, you want that stable and that gas to be running through the engine and running through all the lines. If you add it after, it's not going to do you any good. So make sure you put that in before you get it running. Mistake that some new boat owners who have never winterized a boat might do, just to keep you from doing that. Do that firsthand and then get to the rest of the winterization after that. Another thing I forgot to mention when you're letting your boat sit for the winter, should be common sense, I would think, but for new boat owners maybe it's not. When you let your boat store, I like to let mine sit with the outdrive in this down position, mainly because the bellows, or those rubber casings that extend from the outdrive into the motor through the transom, those will obviously rot over time, weather over time, but if you store it in the downright position, the bottom portion of those aren't going to be stretched out and up, so they won't weather on the bottom as fast and they won't crack as fast, which will save you, if you're doing it yourself, a lot of time in the long run, because you'll be doing bellow changes more often, or a lot of money in the long run if you have somebody else do it. All right, so now we got our stable in, we've got our outdrive in the down position, and we have our water running. So we're going to get it started. If you're like me, this boat's been sitting for a little while, I haven't started it in a while. It is a carbureted motor, so when you start up your boat, what you're going to want to do is this. I'll show you in one sec. So what you're going to want to do here, anytime you start these boats after they've been sitting a while, because they're carbureted, you want to hit your throttle button right here, and you're going to want to give this about, I like to do 8 to 10 pumps, so that's 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 for me, all the way down. Bring it back to the halfway position, and then start your key up. Sounds like my battery is going dead because I was dumb, left it sitting for a while, and didn't unplug the battery, so that's my bad. If it doesn't start, we'll get back to you and continue this video when I charge the battery. Alright, so we got it started. Now what we're going to do, we're going to go out to the outside. We're going to check that the outdrive is shooting out water, so it's spitting water out. And it is spitting water out, so just just make sure everything's flowing through. If you got your water hose hooked up and it's not spitting water out, make sure you shut that engine off immediately. You don't want to be running it without cool water going through it. Otherwise you can ruin your motor, so don't do that. So we're still here, got the boat motor running. What we're going to do is just wait for it to heat up a little bit, get to operating temperature before we start doing any winterization work, and then we'll go from there. What I will show you guys now is what I do, because I don't have a good boat cover to put this over, and I don't shrink wrap it in the winter. I haven't had a problem yet. If I ever have a problem, I guess that'll be my wake-up call to shrink wrap it, not be a lazy bum. But what I do is, in this spot and in this spot, I have these two big garbage pails that I put here. Those keep my tarp and my boat cover sitting on top, so that there's a decline. So if it rains, snows, or whatever, all of that falls and drips off the sides of the boat, and it doesn't go into the boat and sit there and rot the floor for the winter. Another thing I do, and I just did this year, and so far it's been working really well. I made a few of these out of PVC pipe. So I got an L connector on each end, or a right angle, 90. And then I branch this and I sit these over a few different locations in the boat right here, so that if any water wants to try to collect on my tarp or on my boat cover, it can't, so that'll keep it up. And then I have a couple more down in here, and they're attached to that rod, which keeps everything up over here. And then when it's tightened down and my tarp and my boat cover are tightened down, that sits nice and tight, so anything that hits the top of that just immediately falls off instead of pooling. And that saved me a lot of time and energy trying to keep the boat dry. So while this boat's running, I'm going to show you guys what I use. There's my stable 360 Marine that I put in the gas. I try not to leave too much gas in the gas tank. I don't know why I do that. I don't necessarily like it sitting over the winter with old gas, even though I add stable. Just a preference of mine. So I try to run out the gas when I know it's going to be my last run. I try to get it as close to empty as I can, and then I add another gallon of fuel with my stabilizer in it before I winterize for the winter. And then my fogging oil, which you'll see me use here in a second, I just use either Starbright or Seafoam, and that'll get sprayed right into the carburetor. And it says you should spray it into the spark plugs as well. I've never done that. It doesn't get that cold down here in Tennessee. It does go below freezing, but I haven't had a problem yet not doing it. If you think I'm doing it wrong and I should do that, yell at me in the comments, let me know. Or if anybody has had a problem when they haven't done it, especially if you're in Tennessee, please let me know, and maybe that'll be something I start doing. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take off this flame arrestor. Set this right here. Spray our fogging oil. We're going to spray this fogging oil right into the carburetor. And just like that, it should bog down and the motor will stop on its own. So do that, and then we'll go on to filling with coolant and emptying the water out of the block. Now what we're going to do, we're going to drain the block. On the 3.0 there is 2 brass drain plugs, and I'll show you where they are right now. So it might be kind of hard to see this, but right here is one of them, and that's down on the bottom right of the block, and then you got another one right up there. So those are your drain plugs. What you want to do is be very careful, maybe wear gloves, because we got this up to operating temperature. The water that's in the block may be hot, so you don't want to burn your hand. When you take those plugs out, or you loosen them up so that the water drains, you want to be very careful, don't burn your hands. So here we are draining the block. I got one of those brass plugs out. I'm going to take the other one out as well, but I want to show you guys that you can kind of see the steam coming off it, so just remember it is hot. Yeah, all the steam right there. Then once that water stops running out, you got it fully drained, what we're going to do is just put those plugs right back in, and then we'll get to filling with coolant. One more thing I want to mention, because this was the case with mine, with those drain plugs, don't fully trust them, so don't just take the plug out. Get yourself a little metal piece, something that's not going to break off in there, and poke at that hole a little bit. Try to poke through, because there might be sediment and stuff lying in there blocking your hole, which was the case with mine. Nothing started draining out of the top one. I was like, oh, might all drained out of the bottom, which probably not how it works, but what do I know? So I poked a little bit, and there it started flowing. So that's still flowing. Then we're going to put these plugs back in, and then we'll start filling with coolant. So now we're going to fill the block with antifreeze. What we're going to do is usually I just use a regular antifreeze for this, but this year I went with specific marine grade antifreeze. I don't know if there's a difference, I'm sure there's not, but whatever, I went with marine antifreeze. I got a bottle of a gallon of Prestone, good to -100, and because I'm in Tennessee and it doesn't get that cold, I got a cheaper bottle of a regular, I think it was Walmart brand or whatever they make, that goes up to -50, and I'll just mix those together and put them in the block, because it's not going to get below, I mean, we barely even get past 19 degrees, so I don't have to worry about that type of cold here. So what I'll do is I'll turn the video camera around, show you the coolant hoses that we're going to run these into, and then we should be pretty good to go. So we took our hoses off, 2 hoses, one connects there, one connects here. It's at the front of your engine. What we'll do is we'll fill these right to the brim with antifreeze, and we'll put them back on for the winter and call it a day. All right, so we filled with antifreeze until it started coming back out, and then what we did is we tightened those hose clamps, and then we're good to go with that. So now what I'll show you guys is my little setup for the winter, and then we'll be done. One last thing I like to do that I didn't mention before is I like to disconnect the battery for the winter. That way hopefully it holds its charge through the winter and you don't have to dick around with it, screw around with it, pardon my French, when you start it back up in the spring. So like I said, when I cover it up, I throw a large top over the entire boat before I put the boat cover on. I feel like the tarp holds out all water completely, whereas the boat covers you get from Amazon and Walmart, they don't necessarily hold everything out. I got my 2 big garbage cans that sit up nice and high so that any water that comes in or wants to come in gets transferred downward off the sides and the back and the edges. And then I have my PVC pipe here that I cut to fit just right there so that nothing sinks. And then I have the same thing going on up front. There it is. Once it's covered, everything's up nice and high within the boat, so that everything is forced to drain off the boat as soon as it hits the cover and the tarp, with nothing hopefully going inside the boat.